What is up, YouTube? This is Mr. Terry, high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, we're back with another channel friend, Chat History, and his new video that's been recommended to me is the most embarrassing royal deaths in history. So you can see I've got my royalty regalia on, but I am not going down like these guys. All right, this original video is down below. Please support Chat History. Been a great friend of the channel. By the way, you can see him on his episode of History Showdown, my history trivia game show. That playlist will be linked down below. And keep your eye out because we are going to hit the championship show coming up soon. Make sure you sub to my channel and then you will find out when we launch. All right, let's get started. All right, everyone loves a good embarrassing story as long as it doesn't happen to you. I want to know what your most embarrassing story is. Remember, you're anonymous. You can share with us. What do you got down below?
Embarrassing royal deaths.
All right. Louis III. Oh, man.
This is Louis III, and this is his dad,
French,
Louis II, King of West Francia, also known as the Kingdom of the Franks. Hey, Frank. Hey, Frank. Louis II here is renowned for being a very peaceful and very loving ruler for his very short 2-year reign between the years of 877 and 879.
It's like the shorter your reign is, the more likely you were to have an embarrassing death. By the way, West Francia, they couldn't stay together with the Holy Roman Empire. Why'd they have to split, man?
And now he's dead, which is even more peaceful. Now, Louis III is the king to be at the ripe old age of 16. But since his parents married in secret before he was slopped out, his claim to the throne is being questioned.
I like the memes of like this. Have you ever seen this painting where it's like, I forget the meme, it's like, you're really doing that hairdo or something like that. And they're doing it to each other. So funny. They're all gossiping about it.
Now, in order to keep things civil, Louis had struck a deal with his younger brother to rule together. With that agreement, West Francia was split in two. Okay, this is my half, and there's yours. Fine by me. My side has the Xbox.
Oh.
Louis III got the north, and his brother, Carloman II, got the south. Together, the two brothers fought off any would-be usurpers from East Francia who contested their reign. Battles were fought for over a year with some back and forth, but ultimately ended in a loss. And
what do you guys think Charlemagne could have done to keep this empire? Is it just like not have... How could he not have the kids also battle to just totally rip this thing apart? It could have been crazy.
Of their kingdom was ceded for a year with some back and forth, but ultimately ended in a loss, and a portion of their kingdom was ceded to the east. But while East Francia celebrated its victory, a distant threat loomed over the horizon. Those dang Vikings were showing up in 881 and began to pillage the village and plunder asunder. However, East Francia, still riding their high, managed to kick the Viking shit in, not wanting to...
Hey, that is not, that's not very easy to do. The English couldn't do that, and they got ruled for like hundreds of years before they finally got them kicked out. They're going to settle all up in northern France. You heard of Normandy? That's settled by Vikings, man. Vikings making their way into Russia and maybe descendants of Vikings. A little bit controversial, but...
Sail their ships home in shame, the Vikings instead tried their luck with West Francia. Bad move. They would soon learn that two kings were better than Vikings. Louis and Carloman went on the offensive and took the invaders by surprise. Together, the brother armies slaughtered the Vikings, cutting down around 9,000 men in the clash. This victory was absolutely huge for the two young monarchs, who were praised by both Western and Eastern Frankish kingdoms.
You know, the Vikings really go beast mode a little bit after this. Wait till about 1,000, and they start wrecking everybody.
Keep in mind that both kings were teenagers, so the ego trip was insane.
Oh gosh.
That being the case, Louis took to finding himself a queen, as to produce an heir and to cement his legacy.
Yeah.
Louis decided to pursue love in 880.
Wait, let's look at his profile there. Louis III, 18 years old, your / majesty. King of France, straight AF, 6'9" with the crown. Location, where you want to be. Looking for a long-term partner. He's about me. I'm just a king looking for his queen. I've killed Vikings. Lifestyle, I have money and land. Please swipe right. You think you would do pretty well on like Tinder or something?
82 and ended up quite literally pursuing a potential partner.
6'9",
in a bout of hopefully consensual horseplay, the young maiden fled from the eager monarch on horseback to her father's house.
Why are you running?
Louis, very calmly hunting down his love interest, ended up completely conking his dome on the top of a low doorway. That's certainly one way to get head. And since he had yet to sow his seed, his younger brother was left
look at his gravestone. Tried to forgot to. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, how many men have died trying to get with the ladies?
Rule on his own. Well, he died 2 years later after being accidentally stabbed by his servant during a hunting trip.
Whoops!
It's stories like this that make you realize just how stupidly fragile we all are. Just like that, a family lineage is cut short. Imagine if your great-great-great-great-grandmother fell in the shower, completely erasing the possibility of your existence.
Yep.
Poor guy probably didn't even know who she was. But he could have
future
with today's sponsor,
Ooh,
My Heritage.
Who'd they get?
Where'd he go?
Oh yeah, I love genealogy stuff.
My Heritage is the #1 online
I did mine
database
recently.
for discovering
Did a
your
video on it,
family's
by the way.
history. No need to spit a green glob into an envelope and have your DNA
Even
logged for
parts
government
English
cloning
and
purposes.
German.
My Heritage is well equipped with over 33 billion records for you to discover, and most of these people are already
The other
dead.
parts being,
Avoid
like,
the
Swedish.
lengthy and awkward stories about your family's history when you can discover everything yourself. Grandma, what were your parents like? Oh, very abusive. As long as you can enter some basic information like a name and a date of birth, My Heritage can cross-reference existing
Lamau.
records to fill the gaps. Thanks to their instant discoveries feature, My Heritage brought me back to my roots. Literally, I apparently come from a long line of fellas with the surname Root who sailed across the pond from England in the 1700s. This is my great ×8 grandfather, Captain Joseph Root IV. I bet he never thought he'd be brought
But kind of similar to mine. Mine was the Terry line. If you go back, was to a captain. Some of the first I think the first settlers into Connecticut, I believe. That's where like the Terry line comes from.
up 239 years after his death, but here we are. Quit looking at my dinghy. Ever see this painting before? Well, I don't want to brag, but the artist is my 8th generational ancestor, John Trumbull, also known as the painter of the American Revolution. I'm clearly carrying on his legacy, and I know he'd be proud.
Ooh, that's cool. What have you guys? Oh God, that's scary. Way to pause. What cool things have you guys found in your ancestry? Any interesting stories you're related to, or people you're related to? You can always find some.
Heritage even lets you bring people back from the dead.
Ooh.
By enhancing, colorizing, or even animating historical photos of our dearly departed. Take, for instance, my great-great-grandma's great-great-uncle. Look how great he is. And now, he's even greater.
Oh,
so if you want to start branching out and discovering your origins, use my links below to get a free 14-day trial to start building today.
I definitely recommend doing your family heritage. It's really
interesting. Thanks to My Heritage, I discovered my Argentinian great-grandfather had Germanic roots.
I don't know if this has it. Does this one have like the DNA testing? That's what I had done. That's really cool to figure out.
Wait a minute.
Because like, for example, I have, again, equal parts English and like German. So it's like Germany, kind of Switzerland, that kind of area, but Germanic. But my one of my major family lines was like almost a couple centuries in Russia. But that's because they were Volga Germans. So when Catherine the Great came and settled, she brought in and ushered in a lot of other Germans because she was basically German. She was Prussian, but came out to into Russia and around the Volga River, just north of Volgograd, or Stalingrad as it was back then. My family had been there for at least a century, almost like two centuries, but it was like a purely Germanic settlement. So there wasn't all this other like Russian DNA and stuff. And you wouldn't find that. That's why you got to do the DNA stuff and the family tree stuff, because like I have all this family that comes from Russia, but they weren't Russians in that sense. Basil. Okay.
Little Basil I was quite the inspirational success story. Born into a dirt-poor Armenian family in the Byzantine province of Macedonia way back in 811, baby Basil had quite the social ladder to climb. But such a challenge was deemed necessary as he was determined to dodge his destitute destiny. Too bad that he and his family were captured by Bulgarians when he was just 2. Luckily, Basil was able to escape his captors. Just took 23 years.
Oh gosh.
He sought to live out his newfound freedom and fled to Constantinople, which is not yet Istanbul. Possessing incredible strength and an uncanny ability to roll 20s on any and all charisma checks, Basil made leaps and bounds up that social ladder. He began working as a lowly stable boy, got promoted to servant under a relative of the emperor, met a wealthy cougar noblewoman who just threw money at him, dabbled in sweaty
Hey, that's how you get to the top, man. You hook up. Okay, wait, what's happened? She pooped out money. She's
Met
rich.
a wealthy cougar noblewoman who just threw money at him, dabbled in sweaty, slippery wrestling, and then took on a gig as a bodyguard for Supreme Empire King Emperor guy Michael III.
Get close.
Now, you'd figure that being a bodyguard to the Emperor would be a great place to coast until retirement, but Basil was just getting started.
benefits.
He managed to gain the utmost trust of the Emperor, even being formally adopted as a son.
What is going on the left side of this image? Do I want to know? These guys are like complicit over here next to him, and then the guys over in the right are ignoring it. Someone needs to say something. There's an elephant in the room, and it's whatever's happening to that guy.
And taking advantage of this, Emperor Mikey had been convinced by Basil that his own uncle was secretly plotting to take the throne, so he gave Basil permission to address the issue. He did.
Kill him.
This false act of loyalty resulted in the Emperor crowning Basil as co-emperor, which was not his best move.
That's a pretty amazing little rags to riches story, man. This guy must have had a cunning way to be able to talk, right? You just talk your way right up to the top. You go from the peasant boy to like the worker, then you become the servant, then you find a old lady to be your like your what do you call those? Your like bell cow, you know what I mean? And then get taken care of and then make your way to the top.
The Emperor Michael III wasn't very good in his decision-making, which is probably why the public didn't favor him all that much.
Yeah.
Basil had one last obstacle in the way of the crown, his newly adoptive dad. But that's nothing a quick swipe of a sword can't fix. Basil dropped the co in his title and was now the full-fledged emperor of the Byzantine Empire in 867.
New dynasty.
Despite having zero qualifications for the job, Basil's establishment of the Macedonian dynasty brought the Byzantine Empire into a golden age. With
okay, so this is Constantinople, right? Well, this is the Istanbul era. You can't see the Hagia Sophia on the right. The Hippodrome, man. Why? They got rid of that. They should have got rid of that. That thing was so cool. It was a giant racetrack over here. Right, you got this bustling port city. I wish they could have kept all of the elements of the Istanbul era, where you get the cool mosque, of course, that would look a lot like the Byzantine churches, as we know. But yeah, I want the Constantinople and all the Istanbul stuff together. Should never have left. Never got rid of the Hippodrome. It's gone now.
With various military victories, large-scale construction,
there's like an
and
obelisk
significant
left
cultural
of it.
and legal reforms. Problem is, when you get into power through murder, you're always going to be looking over your shoulder for the next person trying to do the same thing to you.
Because it really does. Like when you murder your way to the top, you've basically made it justifiable for other people to murder the way to the top. It's not like you can do it and be like, nope, now it's not okay anymore. No, if you go that way, go that route, somebody else is going to do it. That's why maybe you have like the crisis in the Roman Empire, where they have like 26 emperors in like 50 years, and like two of them died of natural causes. You open the way for bad things to happen.
Now, I'm not going to question the logistics of it, but during a routine hunting trip in 886, the now elderly Basil managed to get his belt stuck in a deer's antlers. Yeah, I don't know. The animal went wild, as animals tend to do, dragging Basil across the Windows XP default landscape for 16 whole miles.
Okay, wait. Let me go back here for a second.
The same thing to you. Now, I'm not going to question the logistics of it, but during a routine hunting trip in 886, the now elderly Basil managed to get his belt stuck in a deer's antlers.
Okay, that's where I'm wondering how this happens. My guess would be shoot it with like an arrow, deer goes down, probably think it's dead, get right up to it, right? And it's not dead, kind of jumps back to life. And is that salmonella in the way back in the cave there? I think that is. I'm glad I came back. We have a salmonella Easter egg here. But anyways, I think that must have been what happened to him.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. The animal went wild, as animals tend to do, dragging Basil across the Windows XP default landscape for 16 whole miles. That's at least 2 kilometers. A servant had managed to cut the Emperor free, but the damage was done. Although somehow still alive, the Emperor sustained tremendous injury.
Oh, I bet.
The servant, still brandishing his iconic belt-cutting knife, was accused of attempted murder and was sentenced to death.
Is that Mehrunes' dagger from Skyrim?
Wait, what?
It's a one-hit kill sometimes.
Emperor Basil I died a bit later from his infected wounds.
Oh, okay. So we got a dude that smashed his head trying to smash, and then a guy that got tangled by a deer. Yeah, these aren't great ways to go down. All right, Edmund Ironside. I don't know if I know this
Edmund
one.
Ironside was king of England for a whole 7 months in 1016 after his rad dad Athelred II died under unknown circumstances.
I know the
Poor
time
Edmund
period.
rose to power at a pretty bad time. Those gosh damn Vikings were gaining a foothold in England, and they needed a stern talking to at the very least. Not just any Vikings though. These were Danish Vikings,
these are the
which were
good
much
ones.
more formidable, flaky, and flavorful. The 26-year-old king fought back hard against the Viking invaders.
Wait. Edmund on the left. Apparently laser pointing Canute. Not effective, just annoying.
Throwing whatever English forces he could at them and saw quite a few victories, granting the king the nickname Ironside for his resilience. But even though he won a few battles, he had yet to win the war. The final conflict, the Battle of Essendon, near modern-day Essex, ended in Danish victory, where there was much rejoicing and many crumbs.
That sounds good.
Following this English loss, a treaty was signed by King Edmund and Viking King Canute. Canute, being a real canunt, agreed to allow Edmund to continue his reign, but only with the control of Wessex, the heart of Anglo-Saxon England. All English land north of the River Thames was now under Danish control.
Like York, basically founded by the Vikings. See, the thing, it's interesting because like now when you think of England and other big cities, you don't think of the Wessex area. I mean, okay, you got the Portsmouth and these other like, down there ones, but that's like the swampy, crappy part, right?
Now,
Sorry,
there
English
was
folks.
a special stipulation that stated whichever king died first, the other shall inherit the whole country. That sounds like great motivation for assassination plots.
No kidding, man.
Lo and behold, just 1 month later in October of 10...
Edmund Ironside learning his sides are not iron.
for assassination plots. Lo and behold, just 1 month later in October of 1016, Edmund Ironside met with a terrible fate. While sitting on his second most important throne, an assailant was assigned to assassinate the king's ass.
He died pooping?
Yep. Old Ironsides caught a blade between his cheeks when he was at his most vulnerable. According to some historical sources, an assassin hid under the king's private turlet, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
No! I don't want to die by getting impaled through the butt while I'm pooping. No. I'm going to have to really, really look in the toilet every time I go from now on. I'm never going to forget this.
Planned died of his wounds, granting King Canute full control over England, which he ruled for 2 decades.
I'm sorry. No one should be able to ascend the throne that way. Okay, I can get a lot of things and even the assassinations. No, toilet time, that is immunity. Henry I.
Being the youngest son of 4 to William the Conqueror, Henry I didn't even have a chance of becoming a Burger King, let alone any kind of respected monarch. When Daddy William logged off the server in 1087, the late king's possessions were divided as such. His eldest son, Robert, inherited Normandy and was made duke. His second son, Richard, got nothing. He was dead, from a hunting accident no less. His third and favorite son, William, inherited the crown of England and was begrudgingly promoted to King William II overnight.
Nobody wants to be king.
I say begrudgingly because it is believed that William II would have preferred to inherit Normandy. Oh well, finally, little Henry was given...
It's like the worst haircut like in history. This thing is like, it's among the worst. This like part thing that goes to like here with like the bob for men. No, absolutely not.
Believe that William II would have preferred to inherit Normandy. Oh well, finally, little Henry was given lots of money and a tiny bit of English countryside. But that was immediately yoinked by his now king brother, which never caused any internal resentment in the coming years. Now, some historians believe that King William
King Silly Willy 2 looking serious
2.0 didn't care much for his new majestic role, and as a means of escape from his kingly duties, he frequently went on hunting trips. You can probably see where this is going. During one of these trips, William, who wasn't much of an adventurer, took an arrow in the chest. Now, since lungs aren't where arrows are usually stored, William quivered in pain as the arrow knocked the wind out of him, and he drew his last breath shortly after. Yeah, hunting trips are lethal to nobility. Of course,
hey, that's the best way probably to die, okay, from that. You guys know with arrows were deadly, and not because it's some insta-kill like you would think a gun would. But if you get impaled with an arrow, it's going to create such a bad wound that you're going to get infected and you're going to die. You didn't survive these things long term. Oh, that sucks though. Yeah, you really think it was an accident though?
Shortly after. Yeah, hunting trips are lethal to nobility. Of course, some historical speculations suggest that the friendly fire may not have been so friendly. It is possible that the fiasco was a plot concocted by Henry to seize the crown. After hearing of his older brother's demise through his own ear holes, Henry speed ran to the royal treasury and no-clipped to the crown to claim the throne for himself.
Of course he did.
Which certainly didn't help dispel the rumors of foul play.
Exactly.
Now,
You don't act guilty when you're doing that. You know everyone's looking at you. How about a mourning period? Yeah, this was totally not an accident.
Claimed the throne for himself, which certainly didn't help dispel the rumors of foul play. Now, the public wasn't exactly against what had happened, as King William II was a bit of a dick. As the new head honcho, King Henry I immediately began a rollback on many of his late brother's brutal policies.
Unified the legal system, strengthened royal courts, diminished court control, reformed tax law, reunited Anglo-Norman state, modernized royal administration, brought an era of peace. Okay, are we going to forgive him now, I guess, of the accidental death that got him there? Maybe.
Replacing them with much more successful judicial and financial reforms. Being the most educated of the four brothers, Henry peacefully ruled England and progressed the kingdom during his reign. Sure, he also invaded Normandy and held his last brother prisoner for life, but that's beside the point. Henry eventually married a Scottish princess and had himself 2 legitimate children that he loved very much, and dozens of illegitimate little crotch goblins whom he didn't.
Because you had, well, you know, your marriage, you have your public marriage, which is purely a political thing. And then you have, you know, who you really like, and then who you just want to be around. You know, all the side chicks. That's how it worked in royalty. That unfortunately also led it to all the inbreeding that's going to go on, because you have to keep it in the family, and you gotta have a kid. So there you go. Habsburgs.
Now, of course, there has to be a little bit of conflict sprinkled in, so his son and only heir got caught up in the White Ship disaster of 1120, which was a titanic tragedy. The titular White Ship, a vessel transporting around 300 people, including many nobles, struck a big old boulder and sank in the English Channel.
No!
Only one soul survived, but it wasn't the prince, so who cares? This sent Henry into a depressive spiral, as many of his subjects refused to recognize his daughter as a rightful heir to the crown.
Oh no.
A woman ruling?
Sexist.
Gross, said the English.
Hey, they're gonna again, these can take a bit. They're gonna get their female queens. There's gonna be some big ones. Victoria, Elizabeth's.
Sad state, Henry cheered himself up the only way a king knows how, with a good old-fashioned hunting trip. But on this trip, Henry gorged himself on lamprey. You know, those weird little wiggly sucking teeth fish? Yeah, apparently those were a delicacy.
You know those like fake ads you get on like terrible websites that'll be like, do you 10 signs you have this ailment, and then they always have like a thumbnail that looks like this. It's like usually irrelevant just to get you to click. I always thought that was a fake, and apparently, yeah.
Despite numerous warnings from his physician to cut it out, Henry continued to chew through the little suckers like candy.
Oh my!
Your Majesty, that's a bit much, isn't it?
It's not food.
King Henry I contracted food poisoning and died from the illness a week later in 1135 at the age of 66.
You don't eat something that looks like that. You deserve to not
contracted food poisoning and died from the illness a week later in 1135 at the age of 66, bringing an end to the Norman dynasty.
Oh my gosh, that's how your dynasty ends? Come on, Normans. Normies. Charles II.
King Charles II was an asshole, which is why history remembers him as Charles the Bad. Having been born and raised in France and descending from a line of French rulers, Charles...
Oh, this is going to be a bad time. We got the plague coming up, you guys. France is going to get the plague soon. Will he be around by then?
To be the big baguette in charge one day. And when his mother, who was the only daughter of former King Louis X of France, faded from existence, Charles received his inheritance. The paltry kingdom of Navarre, a pathetic spit of land in northern modern-day Spain. Hey. This sad excuse for a kingdom was an insult to...
Y'all had this.
Bit of land in northern modern-day Spain.
We all had this castle. We all had this castle as a kid. They make cool castle toys like this anymore? Yeah. This part, you would, it had like a ball or something. You could shoot it out as a cannon. This thing was sick.
That excuse for a kingdom was an insult to his name. An insult he would never forget. Although now
Never.
a king at the age of 17, Charles continued to spend his time in France, hoping to build enough influence to gain recognition for his claim to the crown. But he wasn't successful. He would spend the next several decades double-crossing, manipulating, and backstabbing his way through life.
But that's how
pitting
you
England and
become
France
king.
against each other during the 100 Years' War.
Yep.
He had deceived, murdered, and betrayed for the sake of gaining.
Which lasted more than 100 years. By the way, this is when they didn't name anything right. At that time, France versus England. You may have heard some famous parts of that, like Miss Joan of Arc from France.
Power. He
All in the midst of
eventually
the
helped
plague.
spark a revolution in France.
France.
No, not the French Revolution.
Oh.
That's not for a while.
Yeah.
This uprising was the
1789.
Jacquerie, a peasant rebellion in 1358 against French nobles. Charles led a suppressive force against the peasants to appear to be the savior of France.
Plague goes down
but
now.
everyone saw right through the ruse. After that publicity stunt, Charles lost almost all political support in France and had to turn to England for help. He ended up pleading with English King Dude Guy Edward III to invade the weakened France and divide the spoils between them. But King Edward was all, no. The king had zero trust for Charles and refused the offer, eventually making peace with France. For now. A few years
you're the
later,
English-
Charles was back on his
After the 100
bullshit,
Years'
throwing
War?
himself in wars and declaring loyalty to both sides in exchange for gaining land.
Hey, that's the grump. And I'm not so grump. We are the game grumps.
Power.
Isn't that
He
them?
would just favor whichever side was winning. He did get involved in the Spanish Wars between 1365 and 1368, but faked his own kidnapping in order to avoid participating in battle. And that stunt was instantly recognized as cowardice, making Charles a laughingstock of Western Europe.
But how's he gonna
Finally,
die?
in 1378, the annoying little fly that was Charlie II was finally swatted. His tiny kingdom was invaded by Spanish forces and promptly wiped out.
that's
Charles
embarrassing.
sought refuge in France and was forced to surrender.
This is before Spain was cool. Like, they were just had these little kingdoms. This is before the Reconquista. That's going to be like another 100 years.
in shame. Although wiped out, Charles sought refuge in France and was forced to surrender in shame. Although he retained his crown, he had no power whatsoever. 9 years later, in 1387, Charles the Bad fell ill and was pretty much immobile. His doctor prescribed that his body be wrapped in alcohol-soaked linen sheets, and these sheets were sewn around his body each night to promote any healing. Well, one night when finishing up her king sewing duties, a maid had no scissors to cut the last thread of the linen. There were no blades to be found that could finish the job. So, what do you think she did?
Wait. A, she left to find scissors. B, she used a lit candle. She subscribed. Everyone subscribed to Chat History. She used her teeth. I'm going with the teeth.
Time's up. The correct answer was B. In a moment of completely terrible judgment, the young maid resorted to using an open flame candle to melt the thread off.
Okay.
Charles II, who wanted to be a French king so bad, was promptly flambéed in his bed as the maid panicked and fled.
Dude. I like K. That sucks. I don't know what's going on the left here. This bed, first off, the bed seems to be like 5 feet high. And then I don't know what this guy's doing. He's like blowing a flute into the blankets, or is that the person did it? And then the people on the right are like, hey, he's on fire. Should we do something? I don't know. Should you do something? Hey, how about you do something? I don't know. What should you do? We should probably do something.
Was promptly flambéed in his bed as the maid panicked and fled.
Oh my gosh. What happened to her?
Henry II of France was a decent king between the years of 1547 up until his death in 1559. Nothing spectacular, but decent. He's remembered as an advocate for keeping the Catholic faith in France and suppressing them smelly Protestants.
Yeah,
he had quite a few either burned at the stake for heresy or had their tongues cut out so they couldn't talk trash about Catholicism.
Yeah.
Perhaps his bigger claim to fame, though, was his participation in ending the Italian Wars, which waged across 65 years. With the signing of the Treaty of Cato Cambyses, the deadly wars were finally at an end, and there was much rejoicing. One particular event of celebration was conducted by our subject, King Henry II. To commemorate the end of the wars, as well as his daughter's marriage to King Philip II of Spain, Henry held a jousting tournament. You know, that silly medieval sport where two men hold long wooden poles on horseback and just charge at each other trying to knock the other off. Yeah, I don't get it either, but
sounds awful.
It's way more entertaining than baseball. Anyway, King Henry II held the tournament on June 30th, 1559, and took it upon himself to participate as a challenger.
Okay.
Perhaps the last bad decision of his
speared,
life.
huh?
Set against his own captain of the King's Guard, the two set off to consensually jab their long sticks into each other. With the ASMR pleasures of a wooden crunch, the captain's lance hit its target and shattered upon impact, as they're designed to do.
Yeah.
Problem was, some of the splintered wood decided to nuzzle itself right into the king's eyeball for warmth. Oh my god, okay, I'm sorry, you're fine, you're okay. Royal surgeons raced to the king's aid, but were unable to treat
Why was she already bloody?
the wound. He's gonna be okay, right, Doc? Tough to say. Problem seems to be this big old piece of wood here. I highly recommend he rest up for a few days and we'll see what happens. Are you gonna remove the wood? I'm sorry, I was unaware that you were the royal surgeon. The medics failed to properly treat the king's wounds, which only got worse over the next few days, leading to severe infection.
Oh god, infected eyeball in the Middle Ages. Ew, you're blind and it's like getting pussy and infected. Oh, it'd be so painful. Okay, I'm never gonna joust.
I may have been wrong.
Not that I was thinking about it, but
King Henry II splintered off from this world on June 10th, 1559. What a bunch of silly stuff, right? I have more ridiculous royal deaths on the list, so if you do want a part 2, let me know in the comments.
Yeah.
Remember to click my links below to claim your free 14-day trial with MyHeritage and start.
All right, final thoughts. All right, I want to know from you guys down below, which one do you think was the most embarrassing? The most embarrassing. Let me know down below. And if you, again, I asked you earlier, embarrassing moments. Do you got any embarrassing moments? Go ahead and share them down there. We'll laugh at each other's misery. All right, guys. Again, thanks for Chat History for making this funny stuff. Thank you for recommending this video, and we'll see y'all next time.